Hi, welcome back to another episode of Discovercars, and here we have the Audi Q5, kindly lent to us by Audi Australia. And this is another episode of Car Hunter. So we're lucky enough to have this Audi for the whole weekend, so we're going to be showing you how this thing drives, how this thing performs, and really the whole presence of the vehicle as well. And we're going to be really testing if this is the ultimate family car. So this here is the Audi Q5 3-litre TDI 50 edition, which is pretty much the sporty version of the top of the range model just before we get to the SQ5. So starting with the front of this car, it's a good looking car. There's no doubt about that. It's taken a lot of inspiration from the previous generation SQ5 with these sort of bonnet vanes, and it's taken a more aggressive front stance thanks to the new TT and the R8 and the Q7, which is sort of bringing that new design language in. You've also got real vents in the front. Thank you, Audi. I appreciate that. You've also got your little radar, cruise control, and automatic start, stop, and safety features on either side. And you've got this nice matte silver paint on the grille as well, which is, to be honest, complements the car with this particular color because some cars don't really pull that off. So I think it looks great. And also these lights as well. Audi does some really good LED lights and they really own that sort of industry. Moving around to the side, this particular car gets these 20-inch wheels and they're wrapped in nice Pirelli rubber. These wheels are dual painted, which is crazy. They've got like metallic paint as well as flat silver paint. It looks really cool and I think is a must-have option, to be honest, if you can go for it. But also moving around the side, you've got these big elephant ear style like wing mirrors, which is sort of the Q5's grown into. They were a bit enormous on the previous generations, but they've sort of grown into it and I think they really complement design. You'll also have this crease that runs from the front all the way down to the side, and you've got a bunch of silver trim, which I think goes really well with the blue paint. You've also got, since it's a diesel, you've got AdBlue, and AdBlue is a clean additive that they put into diesels now to meet regulations, and that is one of the things I hate about diesel cars, but no matter, it's there. But that's what you should know, this is a diesel car. So now we're at the back, and that's where everything sort of tails off nicely. You've still got that crease that's gone from the front wrapping around the back, and I think that really looks quite nice, and it's all quite angular and looking more aggressive than previous generations, which is a plus in my books. You've also got these wicked tail lights which have these really cool indicators. We've got the key here, and how cool is that? Also the boot opens automatically and closes automatically with the key. Down here, pretty much stock standard stuff, sensors and whatnot. Fake exhaust pipes, that is a pet peeve, but they're there on the car if you have to know these aren't real. Into the boot, it's really spacious in here. Like you'd expect it for a Q5, but a lot of cars don't utilize that space well, and Audi's done it really well here. You have nice silver trim along here. You don't want to scratch that, so if you don't want to scratch that, you basically want to go here and lower the car down from the inside, because yes, this car has air suspension and you're going to use it because you want to show off to your friends that you don't have to lift as high as them because you got the air suspension in your Q5 3-litre TDI. In the back, nothing else is too crazy. You've got these fold down seats here. You can easily fold down seats from the back, no issue there. And like I said, you can close the boot with the key. Takes a little while. So let's move on to the inside real quick. So, jumping into the Q5, you're greeted by a bunch of different screens and tech and very nice buttons. The exterior looks really good, but the interior is what makes the wow factor pretty much. So you've got a standard digital cockpit here, and it shows you your sat-nav as well as dials and vital information. The vital information, like the fuel and the temperature, are really easy to read rather than being thrown to the screen here, so kudos Audi again. You've also got this screen up here, and obviously that's where you're going to control your sat-nav, your media, your radio, your telephone, etc. You've also got a bunch of nice materials here. Everything you touch, and that's in touching distance, feels quite nice and very premium, as well as like real metal on the steering wheel and the shifter. Everything feels nice and premium. And listen to this. Yep, that's a really nice sounding dial. It's just a nice place to be. There's also drive modes, but I'll get into that in a second. You've got plenty of tech. You've got a wireless charging pad down here, which charges quite quickly. Also got this little mouse pad here, and if you go into to nav and you want to navigate and try and find an address, it actually invites you to draw it out on the trackpad, which is kind of cool, but it just takes a little while to get used to know how to do space, because I sat here for about a couple of minutes trying to figure out how to do spaces, and then we found that out pretty quick because the system knew I was struggling, so that's good. Also, you've got a Bang & Olufsen sound system in here, and boy oh boy, that is the coolest thing, because Bang & Olufsen is sort of like just a league above Bose. I mean, Bose is pretty good, but then you have Bang & Olufsen, and that's sort of like bragging rights. Also, it sounds really good as well. But other than the basic stuff in here, you've also got your drive modes, and your drive modes are available through a little button here, and you basically have, I think about 7 different drive modes. You have 7 different drive modes here. There's a lot here. Also, heated seats. So jumping into the back of the Audi, you also have a fair bit of legroom. My friend likes to sit a little bit further back, and so he's got a bit less legroom here, but my normal driving position, I just have a bit more. I'm 5'11", and I've got plenty of headroom, and I've also got plenty of feet space as well. Obviously this transmission tunnel comes up a bit high, so you're really only transporting 4 people comfortably. 5, you might not make friends with the person who cops the middle. Otherwise, you've also got independent climate control back here, and you've also got 2 USB ports and a 12-volt battery charger, so that's all, you know, you're kitted out for a long trip. Also, very nice here, you've got an armrest, and check this out, cup holders that do that. That's kind of cool, they sort of raise up. But cup holders, everything's back here, big wide center console, so no one's fighting for arm space. Brilliant. Cargo nets back here, big door spins. You've also got a Bang & Olufsen system back here as well, and this car can park itself. So if you've got kids shouting back here, don't have to stress about that. Just line up next to a parallel car spot and the car will park itself. Steering itself in right now. So right here we have the heart of the beast, which is a V6 3-litre turbo diesel engine. It puts out 210 kilowatts and 620 newton meters of torque. It also goes 0 to 100 in 5.8 seconds. All those figures put together makes this car go like a ballistic missile in terms of acceleration. It doesn't feel like it's brutally accelerating and throwing you back in your seat, but boy oh boy, by the time you start looking down at your speedo, you realize how fast you've actually gotten, and that's absolutely nuts. The car also does around 6.5 litres per 100 Ks, which is pretty impressive for this, and also while driving around town quite spiritedly, I've only used a tiny bit of fuel and it's already been 1 day. So we're going to see how this car goes. I can keep going on and on about how this car has 1,000 options and we can talk individually about them, but it's better to show you. We've got the car for the weekend, so let's just get going. So we're currently driving to our destination, and there's a cool things that sort of popped up. Obviously the heads-up display is really helpful, and radar cruise control in this car works a treat, especially coming from someone who doesn't have cruise control at all in their car for long distances. This is very nice to drive, and it's pretty seamless. Also, your heads-up display is full color, and that is wicked. Like, I don't want to wear my sunglasses because it will block out the heads-up display. So if you have polarized sunglasses, you can't see the heads-up display, but at night and also right now in a tunnel, I can see full color, you know, instructions and everything, really well laid out. I think this is one of the best nav systems I've used in any vehicle, to be honest. Funny enough, my mate and I, who's helping me film today, is showing me his music, and Audi has kindly provided some nice pictures for us to look at as telling what genre it is, and this gentleman doesn't have a shirt on at all. And to be honest, I mean, you know, I want to know how to get that job so I can appear in everyone's Audi shirtless. So great job. No, but otherwise it's been a really good drive on the highway, really well behaved. Nothing to complain about, no weird noises, really solid on the road. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. But first we have to zoom up a little bit because we're hitting the 100 zone, which takes no effort at all with over 600 newton meters of torque. It's easy enough to use, to be honest, the cruise control, really simple, really easy, and air suspension is very lovely and still responsive, not wallowy. But yeah, more on that when we get to our destination, so let's keep going. With a lot of twisties and really testing out how dynamic this car is. So we've been driving around in comfort mode, which has been really good, but this is not a place for comfort mode. We've firmed up the suspension and we've improved throttle response, improved steering input, and we're now on our way to get some twisty driving through. So automatically, dynamic mode makes the car feel very responsive, and you can sort of feel where all the R&D went into the car, I mean, from the racing history with diesel cars. And so the performance element of this car is incredible. I had an Alfa Romeo racing behind me, and it was kind of embarrassing. Just got to take off from the lights quite quickly, just coming up these hills, because the Quattro drive, as well as the turbo diesel, which is engine, which is extremely torquey, is quite a good mix and makes for quite entertaining battles against other cars which think they've got a better grip on the road than the Q5. So the Q5 has really changed into something else. It's now a bit more sports car oriented towards the top, which is great to see. And it's you know, if you are truly a car enthusiast, there is no shame in getting a Q5, and nor that there should be. I mean, it's quite a nice car, luxurious, etc. but the power delivery in a diesel engine is, you can see why Audi's putting these engines into their new S models. They're extremely responsive. The only thing is I just wish the lag a little bit would just be eliminated from initial acceleration to actual power down, but that's really minimal, and that's just a part of turbo diesel, and it's just a reality of having a turbo diesel engine. How it handles, yeah, quite well and with great confidence. I know where all the corners of the car are, so on a quite narrow road like this, I'm not concerned about where I've got to place the car, or, you know, worrying about that wheel. I know exactly where to turn the car, and also turning radius, fantastic, really easy. The power steering on this is nice and light for city driving, and when you're on the highway, it's just blissful because you don't have to manhandle as much as you would, say, the Abarth or an Alpine or something like that. It's quite easy to drive, and I can see why the SQ5 is obviously people's car of choice, and see why they're so popular, is because it's like taking this and turning it into more of a sports car. But if you're not going for the SQ5 and you're going for this particular car, this should be it. This is the best of both worlds. So that leads me on to the practicality score. So this gets a 9 out of 10. That's because this car is really spacious inside and really nice, and I guess well thought out. So if you have a family and they're going to complain about getting in the back, you're not going to have that complaint. They're going to have enough space in the back, as well as putting their stuff in the boot as well. You've also got this air suspension, which makes it really easy to load items in and out when you want to lower that back. And you've also got a bunch of amenities, so it's pretty practical and there's not many compromises inside. So onto the daily score. It scores an 8 out of 10, and it is just because it's a little bit big in terms of when you're trying to park it in small spaces if you do live in the city, which I can imagine a lot of these cars are sold in metropolitan areas. And trying to park with the 360-degree camera helps, the reversing camera helps. It's really easy to park this car. However, it's not going to fit in all the spaces that you see. So onto the performance score. 7 out of 10 is quite strong for a car like this. That's because this is the sort of car that you would want to convince your parents to get. They get the 2-litre 4-cylinder, and you drive that around and you go, there's something more to be offered at that. When you move into this engine, there is nothing more to be desired above this. I mean, you can think about how the SQ5 would be an improvement on this, but honestly, this is a lot of engine and it really suits the car. It is convincing case with turbo diesels, which I've sort of moved away from, but driving this, it's sort of rejuvenated that love for it. There is a tiny bit of lag, so I guess that sort of hurts the performance score a little bit when you want to put your foot down, but that is a matter of fact with turbo diesel engines. So onto the cool factor. So the cool factor, obviously this is a pretty subtle SUV compared to the Trackhawks, compared to the SQ5s, SQ7s, RSQ3s. It's pretty subtle. So it does get a 4 out of 10, but it's still upheld by that monstrous amount of torque that is great for bragging rights, as well as the amount of tech inside does really add to that cool factor. However, it's not one of those jaw-dropping cars where you see by. It still turns heads because the color combination as well as the striking looks of the car really work, but that's more of like a luxury sort of presence building thing. In terms of a cool factor and being able to show this off, the acceleration is going to be mind-blowing as well as the tech, but unfortunately it's not really super exciting. So overall, all those scores combine to a 7 out of 10, which is really strong for a car like this. This isn't aiming to be the quickest SUV. It's not even aiming to be a performance SUV as well. What this is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to luxury and power as well. After all that, you can read my article on Car Hunter with Hunter and Bly, and thanks again to Audi Australia for lending this car. It has been an absolute pleasure. We're going to be enjoying Sunday and driving around and getting our final thoughts on the car before we start writing our article, where you can check that out on Hunter and Bly. But that's it from me. I'm Cameron Sutherland, and this is Discover Cars.